Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jonah from Spotlight, and today we are going to be talking to Terry. Terry, how you doing?
I'm doing well, yourself?
Oh, quite well. Always excited. We've done a few events together, and every time you blow my mind in one way or another and give just super actionable advice. So I'm always excited for these events. Want to get a couple things out of the way for everyone watching. Terry is going to try and talk about a lot here. So if things are moving quick or you have to get up away from the computer, life happens. Don't fret. There will be a replay available. It'll be on the YouTube page, on the Discover, or I should say Spotlight event page, and it'll also be emailed to you along with the course offer, which we'll talk about a little later. And if you have any questions, fire away in the chat. Also, hop in there and let us know where you're tuning in from, something you're excited to learn today, maybe how you heard about Terry or how you heard about Spotlight. And if you're watching the replay, please hop in the comments and do the same. We love coming back and reading where you're at and learning about. And without further ado, I did just want to make sure everyone is in the right place. Like I said, we are talking to Terry Rice, and we are going to be talking about the 5 keys to success in the creator economy. And you're going to discover and prepare for the 5 keys to success in the creator economy, learn how to produce, price, and pitch your content so you can get paid for who you are, not just what you do. And a little background on Terry, if you don't know who he is, Terry is a business development consultant and staff writer at Entrepreneur Magazine. His work is focused on advising professionals on how to launch or scale their knowledge-based businesses so they can get paid for who they are instead of just what they do. Terry, I don't want to take up any more time because I know we got a lot to talk about today. So I'm going to hand it over to you and we can dive in.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, first of all, everyone, thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. One thing I will bring up is here in the US, it's a holiday. So I have about 3, 4 kids running around in the background right now. So you might hear them at any given moment. I'm also noticing that my camera's a little out of focus. Let's see if that helps. Not quite. So hopefully this gets back to, there we go. Here we go. Right. So it's all part of being a creator is adjusting on the fly. But one thing I'm excited to talk about today is just the opportunity available in the creator economy, which right now is valued at $20 billion with the expectation to be worth about $100 billion by the end of 2022. And I think there's room for all of us to get our fair share because we're all creators. Whether you're a content creator or a consultant, maybe you're a writer, videographer, blogger, so on and so forth, there's lots of opportunities for anyone to monetize their knowledge as a creator. And fortunately, since work and workplace have been decoupled like no time in history, you can do it from anywhere in the world. So I am going to be walking through some slides, but let's not turn this into a boring presentation. As you have questions, please do pop in and ask them. That way I won't get bored either. But what I'd love to know is just first of all, what kind of creator are you? If you want to pop that in the chat so I can keep an eye on it. And I see some people are already talking about where they're calling in from. We got Ebony from Washington, D.C. I was actually born in that area, so good to see here. Questions about how to position yourself as a service provider. Awesome. We got Nevada here. Cool. Amsterdam. Awesome. Cool. I'm not sure what time it is there. It's probably around like what, 8 o'clock. So thank you for that. But let's go ahead and pop into this. And like I said, let me know what kind of creator you are. I'd love to get some more specifics on how I can help you. Gonna skip the background part. That's me when I'm not cutting my own hair. But business development consultant. I write for Entrepreneur Magazine, and I also teach at NYU as well as General Assembly. But before all that, I worked in-house corporate at both Facebook and Adobe, and I left that about 7 years ago, I guess, to start my own business as a consultant. And I wish I had realized back then how important creating content was to building my brand and my business. I have since come to realize that's how you attract clients who, like I said earlier, value you for who you are, not just what you do. Right. So we have Judy here, who's an artist and a teacher. Oh, that's awesome because Judy, you know this for sure. As a teacher, you get a lot of questions, and questions create content. You can then use that content as a creator to help a larger audience. So I see Ebony. Oh, awesome. Same thing. All right. So you're an education consultant in special education. Same thing. So anytime you get a chance to do live interaction as a creator, that's perfect because you'll get real time feedback and you also get more questions from the audience, which you can turn into content. So you're already in a really great spot for that. Let's get into the agenda. The first is exploring the 5 keys to success, right? How do you generate revenue sufficiently through the content you're creating, no matter what medium that you're using? But it's also really important to define your brand. And if you don't do that, you don't have clarity. And clarity is the precursor to confidence. So we'll talk about that too. Really important here, determining your services and your pricing, because what you don't want to do is have someone reach out to you and say, hey, we'd love to work with you, and not be able to give them a response in regards to your pricing. Or when someone pitches you, not know how to respond in regards to the offer they have. And I'm going to ask a quick yes or no question. A company reached out to me recently asking me to produce content for them. It was going to be a 3 hour course for a rather large audience. I was not going to get compensated too much on sales of the course, but they're going to give me $6,000 to create the course. It would take about 3 months of prep and 5 days of shooting for $6,000. Yes or no? Does that sound like a good deal? $6,000 to record a course. It's going to be a 3 hour course. It's going to take around 5 days to film and a few months to coordinate back and forth with the company. Does that sound like a good deal? Yes or no?
Can I pipe in?
You can.
No.
Why do you say no, John? I'm curious.
Well, I would have one question. Is it your intellectual property and your materials, or are they feeding you the information to build into a course?
It's built in tandem.
Oof, I would say no, because if it's it really depends on the contract and how much of your own intellectual property they're buying from you, or if they have any exclusive rights to that. Because I've seen people sign away their intellectual property and then afterwards not be able to teach what they created.
Yep,
So that would be my big caution, and why I say no off the bat is my instinct would be you're owed a lot more for that amount of time.
exactly. And I'm saying no as well, which is actually what I told them. But you're all doing pretty well here. You're saying heck no, right? I see H. Faustino saying I had a similar situation and I said no. Jonah brought up a really good point. If they own the intellectual property, by contract, you often can't share that same kind of education outside of their forum, or else you're a breach of content contract. So I could spend 3 months creating this content and never get to share it again. And then beyond that, 5 days of filming, that's hard. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of teleprompter, right? That's a lot of time away from my 4 kids. And then my wife has to pick up the slack too. So for me, no, $6,000 is not worth it. A few years ago, absolutely, I would have jumped at the chance. But now I'm fortunately in a different position, right, to do so. And I'm sharing real stories because theory doesn't really help too much. I'm sharing real stories, and sometimes you might think, "Oh, why'd you turn this money down?" I'm telling you why I turned it down, but I also want to tell you why I would have said yes in the right context. But these are all great questions, and I'm glad that you're asking them, and you all arrived at the same response as me, which is no thanks. So let's hop into the 5 keys of success in the creator economy. And the first one is just specific. Who are you? What's your message? And who's it for? Because if people don't know the answers to these questions, they don't know if they want to hire you to create content or consume your content. So we have to start there. The next is, what services do you offer and how much do you charge? And I'm going to give you some really good pointers on how to offer various services. But what I see sometimes is people say, I want to be a full-time creator. And I get it, that's cool. But there's a lot of security in using your knowledge in other ways as well, such as being a consultant or a trainer, because you might have more steady revenue as opposed to being a solely a content creator, especially initially going on. So we'll talk about that too. Next up, speed. How quickly can you come up with ideas and turn them into content? Because often when you're working with a company, they want you to come up with a theme of the content they're paying you for. Or as an independent creator, you have to come up with fresh ideas on a regular basis. So how do you do that quickly? I'll show you how to do that momentarily. Scale. How do you amplify the reach and impact of your content? Super important too, because you want to reach more people. And then lastly, systems. What tools, processes do you have in place to manage your business and content creation? So if you notice, they all start with an S. And as a content creator, it's beneficial to have like mnemonic devices or some kind of module, whatever it is that you're known as. And in this case, I have the 5 S's for these 5 keys. Right? Well, let's go through them all one by one. The first one is specific. Your personal brand statement. Yes or no? Do you already have a personal brand statement? which is more or less you saying, what you do, who you do it for, and the outcome they'll get from that. And you want to make sure you have this prepared because if someone asks you, hey, what do? You should be able to scream it from across a parking lot and just be able to clearly iterate it. You shouldn't say, oh, well, it depends. Sometimes I do this, sometimes I do that, so on and so forth. So, yes or no, do you currently have a personal brand statement that describes what you do, who you do it for, and the outcomes that your audience will get from that? And here's an example. I help high net worth entrepreneurs invest so they can spend more time doing what they love and less time worrying about their money. This is a personal brand statement. What do you do? Who do you do it for? And what's the outcome? And if you listen closely, you notice that I skipped the word that says strategically. You know why? That's hard for me to pronounce. So, as a course creator, you have to know your limits sometimes. And if things like that happen where you get a script and you're like, dude, I can't say that word, don't say the word. You are the talent. You have to feel comfortable pushing back. There are so many times when I'm recording content, and I'm like, look, I can't say that. One word that's hard for me to say is entrepreneur. Who do I write for? Entrepreneur Magazine. So as you can imagine, that gets a little confusing sometimes. But just be ready to push back on things, whether it be the content, the approach, so on and so forth. Right. So again, you want to have this personal brand statement. Super, super easy formula too. I help this audience do this action or achieve this goal so they get this outcome. So that's your initial homework is to write your personal brand statement. Like I said before, clarity is the precursor to confidence. That's how you confidently present yourself. The next thing that's really important is your target audience. And keep in mind, you may have two target audiences. One is the people that you're creating content for, individuals. The other could be the people that are paying you to create content for that audience. So brands and organizations. Now let's pretend you're monetizing your YouTube channel. Your main audience is going to be the people that are watching that channel. But if you're someone like me who gets paid to create content for Verizon or General Assembly or Entrepreneur, I have both the end user, meaning the people that are listening to my content, as well as the organization that's paying me for it. So super important to realize that. And I'm going to show you an example from my branding deck, how I separate these two. Pay close attention here. It's super important to understand you have more than one audience. So who's my audience? Individuals and organizations that are aligned with entrepreneurship, specifically emerging entrepreneurs who want to start a business without sacrificing their health or the people and experiences that matter most. Now pay close attention here. At the very top, you have my primary audience. This is who's going to be consuming my content. Upper left-hand corner, we have Vicky Sarmiento. She's a professional service provider, and her primary audience is other small business owners. Now, on Vicky's end, my price point might be kind of high to her to work with me one-on-one. Maybe I can sell her some courses, but she would not go to me directly for consulting because I normally start around $5,000. On the other hand, there's Michael. Michael's the VP of innovation at some large tech company or maybe somewhere in the media. His primary audience is industry leaders and maybe clients. So he wants to get speaking gigs or high-end advisory positions. Michael can't afford to work with me directly because of the upside for him. So this is the audience I'm making content for. But pay close attention to the secondary audience. These are the people that would hire me to create content for their audience. So Deja Fox, she's the director of partnerships at Teachable, let's say. And her primary audience is early stage entrepreneurs and professional development programs. She might hire me and say, hey, Terry, can you do some kind of course on social listening for entrepreneurs? Sure, sounds great. There's also Patrice Polcher. She's a media or event organizer. She might say, hey, Terry, come speak at this conference. Or can you create content for our corporation, our college, whatever it is? So the really important point here is realize you have a primary and secondary audience. And the secondary one, if you're creating content on behalf of an audience, of an organization, that's the one you want to attract as well. Has anyone ever done this before, thought about their primary and their secondary audience in regards to building your business? So sure, if you can't create content for that primary one, the secondary one's never going to hire you, but you also have to make yourself attractive and available to the secondary one. Is this a new concept? Has anyone done this before? Primary, secondary audience? Cool. Melinda's already all over it. Awesome. So on your end, that's what you're going to do too. And you want to have what's called a media kit ready for that secondary audience. which more or less says what your rates are, what your reach is, who you are, so on and so forth. Don't go crazy with it, but it's beneficial to have some kind of PDF where it's all laid out what you do, who you do it for, and examples of any content you or partnerships you've had in the past.
Terry, can I pop in with a question here?
Go for it.
So I'm curious how this ties in. A lot of creators I've talked to in the last year we've talked about how more and more they find themselves having to be entertainers as much
Mhm.
as educators or as much as service providers, especially if you're on social media just trying to gain a following. As for people who are just entertained, does that count as your secondary audience, or is that a third audience or something? Should your secondary audience still be people you're selling to?
I would say this. I mean, it's great if you're going to entertain people, but you can't pay your bills with laughs, right?
Right,
Because
right,
there is going to be a I can't remember the word, like tertiary. Like what comes after
right.
secondary?
I
What's the
think
word?
that's tertiary. Yeah,
Yeah, another word I
yeah.
won't say. But but that can very
Yeah.
much be a false positive because I know this person who's a personal trainer and they have about like 100,000 followers on Instagram, but the majority of them don't buy anything. So I call it a vanity metric when you're getting like, these accolades or, followers from people, but if they won't buy anything from you, or if they're not a brand that can sponsor you, it ain't helping much, So
Right,
so I would actually look out for that for people that are even on your email list who are on your email list but never buy anything. You want to be aware of that because you can't monetize it.
right, right. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, good question though. And Ebony's saying, not yet, but it will be teachers and school districts. Yeah, Ebony, go for those school districts, right? Because if you get the district, you get all the schools. I love that idea. So your next action item is to determine your primary and secondary audience. But remember, when you're pitching, if this is with an organization, you're pitching to the secondary audience about how you help the primary audience. So your goal will be to find these organizations that overlap your audience, right? You both have the same audience, and they can use you as a vehicle to reach them more authentically. All right, let's make some money. Sales and service. This post I put up on LinkedIn because I thought it was a good example of how, as creators, we have to collaborate. And too often, people see everyone as competition, right? Like, oh, this person also does this kind of educational content, or this person also makes this kind of funny reels. But I always say the future belongs to creators, and we have to create it together. And the problem is, first of all, no one knows how much anyone should be getting paid for any of this stuff. You have to ask around because what's going to happen is if a brand does reach out to you, they're either going to lowball you or play dumb and act like they don't know how much they should pay you. So the way that you come up with your rate, one way to do that is to ask other creators, "Hey, how much are you making?" And I talked to this woman, Kim Kape, and I was like, "Hey, Kim, look, how much are you getting paid for these sponsored reels you're doing on Instagram?" And she's like, "Hey, Terry, just call me." Talked for a half an hour. She gave me a solid number. But what she also does is she'll look for hashtag ad or hashtag sponsored post, and then reach out to other creators and just ask them, "Hey, how much are you getting paid?" Now, not all of them get back to her, but some of them do. And what she'll often say is like, "Look, you're a guy, I'm a woman. I just want to make sure I'm not getting underpaid. Can you please just give me an idea of what you're getting?" And she found out for one project, she was getting paid $2,500 less than every other guy that was working on this with the same client. So you want to ask questions. You won't always get a response, but otherwise you're just guessing. And I can tell you right now, I've seriously undervalued myself on way too many occasions because I didn't ask these questions initially. And I'm going to take a sidebar to tell you a quick story. I was talking to this woman the other day, and she said one time she was sending out a proposal. This is for consulting work, and she was so tired. Instead of writing down that she charges $50 an hour, she wrote down $500 an hour. Here's what happened. The company got back to her the next day and said, "Look, we can't pay you $500 an hour, but we can pay you 300. What do you say?" I'm like, "Well, shoot, you just 6x your revenue by a typo." So you see how close you are to underselling yourself on many occasions. That's why, yes, you want to ask around, but also often if you ask for too much money, they won't necessarily say heck no. They'll say we can't do that, but we can do this. So these are some ideas how initially you can start circling around your pricing. One is ask questions. Another is just be prepared to negotiate to an extent. Like You don't have to, give them your best offer initially. Start high and then meet somewhere in the middle. And you might feel like, hey Terry, am I offering too much by having a bunch of services? I would say no. This woman, Dory Clark, I interviewed her for Entrepreneur Magazine. She has 9 income streams. She's an instructor, she's a consultant, she's a best-selling author, she's a speaker. And she said, Terry, you want to think of your knowledge like a wheel, and your knowledge is at the hub in the middle. And there's different spokes you can use to monetize it. And it would behoove you and protect you to find several different ways to monetize your knowledge. So on my end, I'm a consultant, I'm a speaker, I'm a course creator, I'm a content creator. I have a podcast. I find several different ways to monetize my knowledge and my expertise, but it all goes back to that original personal branding statement, right? Which is me helping early stage entrepreneurs grow their brand and revenue. So don't feel like you're getting too scatterbrained by having a bunch of different ways of monetizing your knowledge. It behooves you. And that's what I was saying before. I think it's kind of scary to be a full-time content creator because you're at the mercy of getting a yes or no too often from some media planner who might just move on to the next person. But if you can do consulting, if you have an online course through Teachable, if you have other revenue streams, you can actually be bolder with your pricing for content creation because you won't starve if they say no. So it's a really good opportunity for you to just more or less hedge your bets by having other revenue streams. So key takeaways, nobody knows how much any of this stuff should cost. Like seriously. And don't limit yourself to just one revenue stream. I'll give you another example. I was approached by this organization and they're like, Terry, can you create videos promoting like entrepreneurship for our platform? And they're like, just give us a price, let us know what it's going to be. They're like, you can shoot the videos from your cell phone for all we care. We just want, 3 videos, I think it was. So I come back to them, I'm like, okay, first of all, I was going to say, I think 3,000. And my wife was like, you're crazy. Like, why are you underselling yourself? Like, because it's not just the video, it's the time spent preparing the scripts, getting the room set up, getting the rooms, the kids to be quiet, so on and so forth. So I finally got back to him and I said, okay, that's going to be 7,500. Okay, no problem. They said yes. They didn't negotiate whatsoever, which tells me I left something on the table, but it also gave me more confidence going forward to charge a minimum of in this case, it'd be $2,500 per video. So you see what I'm saying? I mean, you want to not be afraid of getting those no's because that's going to give you some more data. But when you have other stuff going on, you can be more confident the way that you're pricing yourself. So these are some examples of being a creator, and you already know what yours are. Could be online music, could be podcasting, could be event moderation, blogging, video content creation, so on and so forth. And on your head, you have to have an idea how much you charge for that, at least a range. And like I said, there's a few ways to do it. One is just asking other creators. Another is, yeah, you can Google it and see what the going rate is because any media planner is doing the same thing too. They're going to say, how much should I pay someone to make like a sponsored Instagram post or whatever? But that's more or less the approach you want to initially take, right? So on my end, I'll share what I do, right? So this is my actual pricing. If you want to, screenshot or take a look at it or whatever, this is what I charge for various things. So if I'm doing some kind of online course, it's between 250 and 500 bucks. Consulting could be an hour for 500 bucks, could be, a month for 5,000. Content creation, which I think is more important for all of you, it's going to range between $1,000 and $10,000. Ebony says, I was struggling with my rates, but my coach gave me a number. There you go. Start there, and like with these numbers, you can start wherever you want to and realize you're not going to get a yes every time, but you want your yeses to be more impactful. I'd rather hear a no 5 times for $10,000 and hear a yes once than hear 10 yeses for $500. You know what I mean? Just do the math on it and it makes sense. But the benefit of you having some services that you pay a lot for, like my advising it's up to $25,000 a month, is I can be more adventurous with my pricing for other things, get a yes, get a no, but then pass that information along to other creators too. Here's how much I got from this company, and you should do the same. So just get this established because the worst thing you can do is not seem confident in your pricing because it tells the people that you don't have a plan. But if you know, okay, gosh, it's going to take me this many hours to create one thing or another, and that's what I'm backing into my price from, then from there you can more confidently go ahead and give a price.
Terry, can we quickly talk about, I feel like there's this myth out there, and maybe I'm wrong, but this myth that like if you price too high that a client is just going to disappear. I've never really had that experience. I've almost always had the experience that a client comes back and say, "We want you. Can we work this out?"
Yeah.
Do you
I
so unless you're just crazy and you're like, "It's $1 million for an hour of my time," but like,
yeah, I should try that.
but but do you have
Yeah.
experience with that? Because I'm always, if I at this point, if I put out a number and someone says yes right away, I'm always like, "Damn it,
Yep.
I should
Yeah.
have asked for more."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
where do you sit with that?
So I've been doing this since 2015. I've probably had maybe two occasions where someone just didn't get back to me after I gave them my pricing.
Hmm,
And
that's
yeah,
not bad.
the most recent one was probably about 2 years ago. I just never got back to them, but or they never got back to me. And was it my pricing or did it just ghost to ghost?
Right.
I don't know. But to your point, yeah, I mean, normally they'll say things like, "Hey, we can't pay this much, but can we pay this much? Can we work with you?" And what I often say is, don't lower your prices, just add something or take something away.
Mm,
So, for example, if someone's like, "Hey, Terry, we want to pay you $5,000 to do this sponsored ad, or sorry, this sponsored post about Bose headphones," I would say, "Look, it's this much money." If they're like, "That's too much," I'd say, "Okay, look, I'll do that, and I'll throw in a webinar about how entrepreneurs can grow their brand of working from home." Like, I'm making this up, but I'll add something in that hopefully wouldn't take me too much time to create, to hope to get to that number. Because at least that way we're negotiating going back and forth. So normally I'll take something away, like you only get one video instead of two, or I'll throw something in, like, oh, and I'll make reel based content. I'll have my editor slice it up to make a reel or something.
love it. That's such a good approach. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, if you keep on hearing no for like months, yeah, lower your rates.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's like things aren't going well. Like this is very clear.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's either the way you're presenting yourself, maybe you don't have examples, or your rates are way too high. So
Right.
it's yeah.
Yeah, just I
You're
was just trying to speak to specifically, I meet so many people, especially coming from music, who feel like they have one shot to give a price and are just consistently overpricing them or underpricing themselves and
yeah.
ultimately hurting the whole industry by doing so. Because it's
You're hurting
yeah,
the industry, and you might be hurting yourself because they might say no because it seems like you don't value your time, or the production value is going to be
right,
lower. Something's wrong.
right,
Like right now, someone tried to sell you like a new car. And like, oh, it's only $600. Yeah, something ain't right. You know what I mean?
right,
Like I just
right,
just no. Like
right.
whatever. Something's going on.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it. Love it.
So there's different pricing models you can think about and consider. If you're working on, again, like some kind of content creation for a company, it's normally going to be one of the last four. So it could be a project where you're doing X amount of videos. It could be a retainer where you're doing them on a regular basis. It could be a return on investment where you're saying, oh, this company has a lot of upside. It's like medical, travel, auto, finance. They make a lot of money. You might charge them more than you would like a local restaurant because they're going to make so much more money from it. So keep that in mind. Like, don't just think about your time, think about how much impact they're going to get from the content as well. And you can also do like a revenue share or just straight up affiliate marketing, which is where you share a unique link that tracks purchases that come from your content and make money that way. But there's a question here: how do you build a team to provide all these different services, um, collaborating with other creators? So yeah, that's a really good question. And I took way too long to build a team because I'm not creative whatsoever. But I'm like, oh, I'll just use Canva to start slicing up stuff and using tools like the script to slice and dice my videos. The way that I built my team, I think last name's Alfastino, is I just put up an Instagram story and said, "Hey, does anyone have a editor they recommend for video editing who can do reels and long form content?" That's how I found my editor. And then you're also going to want to get a virtual assistant. I would strongly recommend. And the way that I got my virtual assistant was I put up an Instagram story and I said, "Hey, does anyone have a virtual assistant who can help me? I need help with these tasks." So the good thing about doing that is you could say, "Hey everyone, as you may know, I offer content creation services." Your audience might not know that, and they might say, "Look, dude, I don't know an editor, but I'd like to hire you for something else." So you're actually advertising for your business and finding help at the same time. Now, if you want, what you can also do is you can go on a platform like Fiverr and hire people. And what I like to do is I like to hire three people to perform the same task. So I'll say, hey, look, three random people that I found on Fiverr. I want you all to edit this video, and then I'll select the one that does the best job. So you're saying, Terry, I'm like paying three times as much for the same job. Yeah, but you're also three times as confident in the one that you finally say yes to. So I would do that as well. But it's also just building your connections, because when I say collaborate with other connectors, I think that's what you're also honing on in on. It's you reaching out to people saying, hey, Judy, I saw that video you did with ConvertKit. Gosh, I thought that was amazing. Like the way that you blended this and that was super cool. So finding people that are either already getting sponsored or just make great content in general and just congratulating them. Because on my end, I think if you don't have a network of people that can give you tips like I'm giving you right now, or collaborate on content where it's like a conversation, maybe going back and forth, then you're just out there on your own. So take advantage of the fact that people are more willing to connect online these days and just congratulate other creators and find a way to work with them, because we do have to work together on this. Otherwise, it's like the Wild West out there. It's not sustainable. So what I want to do is just show you an example of how I broke down my rates for a podcast that I'm pitching to an organization. And by the way, I've worked with this company for about 5 years, so I give them about a 20% discount on my rates. And you can go back and forth on discounting, but this company has supported me and my family for years. So like I think they deserve a break. And I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars for them. So I don't mind giving them a break on pricing for this. But what I'm doing is saying, okay, if I'm going to have this podcast, I broke it up into three sections: production, editing, and then giving them social media clips. So the more detailed to an extent you can get on where your time is going and where the money is being spent, the better. Don't overdo it. But what I did is I also said, look, if you just want to buy these, produce, sorry, sponsor this on an ongoing basis, I can do 4 episodes a month. Initially, it's going to be $4,200 for the top line. But I also said, look, if you're just kind of on the fence, you're not really sure if you want to do this or not, we can also start with a season, a 10-episode season, see where it goes. And then from there, renew. So I'm already giving them options. Do you want to do this on an ongoing basis, or do you want to do this on a season basis? Right? Same thing. If someone says, hey, Terry, or hey, Judy, we'd love to have you make content about XYZ. You could say, cool. Do you want to make this a series, a one-off thing? What makes sense to you? So you always want to do this future selling of additional projects. And then I'm not going to go through the details, but I just broke down line item after line item. Like, what is it for production? How much is it for production and using my team to edit? And then lastly, how much is it for all that, plus giving you social media clips that you can put up on various platforms? Now, truth be told, I only wanted them to say yes to the top line item because I don't want to do all that other stuff. I put the other stuff there to make the top line item look cheaper, and I'm willing to do it if they say yes to it. But the goal here is to make the option A, if we'll call it that, look cheaper so they say yes to that, and I can avoid doing all this extra work. But just give different options, because if you can proactively think to yourself, what's a question they might have about this project in regards to the price, what they're getting for it, so and so forth, and answer that proactively, you can cut down on a lot of the back and forth, and as a result, get to a yes a lot quicker. So I said this already, don't lower your prices, just add something or take something away. So the action item is to determine your services and pricing. So go do that. Common objection and rebuttal. I love this one. You don't have enough followers. Here's what you're going to say. Look, you're paying me to create content, and you can amplify the reach through paid ads. So some of you might say, Terry, I want to get into this, but I only got like 2,000 followers on Instagram. I got like 1,000 on LinkedIn, so on and so forth. That's fine. It doesn't matter. Because if they're asking you to promote from your platform, that's how they're going to pay. You can say, look, you don't have to do that. You can just, use ads. I'm the talent, but you can use ads to get more reach. And this is real data from a campaign. If you look, the amount spent was $1,000 on ads. Impressions, that's the number of time the post was shown, is $100,000. So you can say, look, now I got 100,000 followers, and you only spent $1,000 on it. So if you ever get that pushback, you don't have enough followers to be a creator, just say, look, put some budget behind it. Give me $6,500 and give Facebook 1,000. Boom, now you're good to go. So don't use that as a self-limiting belief, first of all, or a reason for people to push back on you in regards to the value that you have to offer. Because the content is super valuable as well. Another one is, how do I know your work is any good? That's why you have to have examples of your work. And one thing I'm doing right now, and I like other people to consider this as well, is I'm going to proactively make a reel promoting a service that I want to partner with, and then show it to them and say, hey, here's something I could do if we partner together. So it'll probably take me, I don't know, 3 hours total. And I'll have to pay my editor about $45 to edit a reel. Yes, you heard me right. I pay my editor $45 to edit reels. And then from there, I'm going to reach out to this company and say, here's an example of what I can do. Would you like to talk? And you might think, gosh, Terry, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, it isn't, because if they say no, I can still go to a similar company and say, here's an example of what I can do in a reel. But when you're just like, oh, trust me, trust is earned. But if you go that extra mile to have like a real portfolio of your work, no matter what it is, I'm talking about reels. It could be you wanting to be a LinkedIn learning instructor or a podcast, whatever it is, video cast, whatever it is, just show some examples and then say, do you want to sponsor this? Do you want to pay me for this? So on and so forth. Right? Has anyone done that? Has anyone proactively made examples of their work so they could then pitch themselves for potential partnership? Which I know is not the easy way out, but I go for things that work, not things for things that are easy. They're not always the same thing, unfortunately, but that's how it goes. Sarah, welcome. You had another meeting. That's all good. See the replay. You'll see me welcoming you here as well. All right. Speed. How can you quickly come up with content? Well, one thing you want to do is just keep a running list of topics for personal and professional use. Right? Ebony said she's working on that right now. Awesome. Keep a running list of topics in your head for personal and professional use, because you never want to run out of ideas, right? But you don't have to if you're just being mindful of your current situation. And for example, like right now, my desk is kind of messy. So I could say, oh gosh, one way to be more productive is to clear your workspace. Clear workspace, clear mind, better outcomes. So now I could reach out to a tool that helps with productivity. Maybe it's like Notion or whatever. I could say, hey, I'd love to do some video content around ways you can boost your productivity. And at the end, mention Notion. But the idea I started with me saying, oh, shoot, my desk is a mess. Is there a story in this? First of all, yeah, clean it. But second of all, if your surroundings are messy, you have messy thoughts, and you can't create good content. So if you're just mindful, you'll realize there's stories unfolding in front of you all the time, and you kind of bank those as ideas to create content with. So yes or no, does anyone here plan their content or just have ideas jotted down proactively?
Yes, but because of you.
Awesome. Well, I'll take credit for that.
Yeah. You have that content matrix, which was so valuable to just it's so easy to sit there as a creator and go every day like, what am I gonna post today? And just having some kind of blueprint for that made such a difference to then be able to go create a content calendar and plan everything. So yes, but got to call out, that was, you made that very much possible, the first event we did together. So
Awesome. Well,
appreciate
you're
it.
going to see that. You're going to see that slide again. So
Hey,
for anyone who wants to have the same transformation in regards to your content planning, here you go. You just want to have what's called this matrix, this content marketing matrix, and come up with thoughts that you can share, whether it be in regards to your area of expertise, industry updates, or just things that are going on in your life, right? Like me looking at my desk, and just jot down ideas as well as the medium that could be expressed in. So here's a bunch of ideas that I had, like um, me talking about like mental and physical health, working out in the snow, consulting tips, how to deal with rude clients. Another one I had was my kids making noise while I'm on calls like this. And that can turn into content. Oh gosh, my kids, when they're making noise when I'm leading webinars, I can't hear anything. It's hard to focus. What do? Oh, I use noise canceling headphones. Oh, I got an idea. I could go out and talk to Bose and say, hey, I got an idea. I'm gonna do this really funny reel or really funny video where like my kids are running around in the background. I'm trying to have this call. I can't hear anything, but then I put your headphones on, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, cool, I can hear. and they reduce ambient noise around you, so other people can't hear my kids as well. So these are examples, right? But again, these stories are unfolding in front of you all the time, and you'll all have all these ideas ready to pitch when you want to reach out to a company, or when they reach out to you, you have that baked as well. And Judy's saying, I show examples of my students' work so that they learn from me. I need to organize some of those for sales. Oh gosh, yeah. So Judy, anytime you have like testimonials or someone is saying, "Oh my gosh, this was so amazing," so on and so forth, you want to capture those because you can put them on your website, put them on LinkedIn. You want to get permission to do so, obviously, but that third-party validation is super important. So I highly recommend doing that, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Another thing I'm going to say is done is better than perfect because there's been so many times when I've created content and the clients are like, "Can you change this? Can you speak slower?" Because I have a problem with that, or just like one thing or another. But normally they'll just ask you to improve it. They won't say buzz off, right? But the thing is, if you take forever to send it over, that's when it becomes a problem, right? And then for your own content, focus on providing value and don't sweat the small stuff. Like yesterday, one of my LinkedIn posts I thought was brilliant. Then I realized I had a typo and I told my wife, and she's like, "Actually, you have two typos." I'm like, "Well, shit." thanks for thanks for saying that. But I think the best content creators they try to create like messy progress, like they just keep on moving forward, and you can refine it, if necessary. But if you just get stuck on being perfect, perfection is the enemy of progress, and you'll never crank out as much content as you could. So don't worry about that. I mean, especially like if you're doing videos, often people can edit out mistakes. Like I made a video for one of my partners the other day, and I accidentally swore during it, and I was like, "Oh, probably shouldn't have done that." So my editor just removed that audio when I said that, and then put like B-roll over it. Like B-roll is like when you have background videos that play over, or you can do a voiceover over it. So he fixed it. I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna have to re-record this whole thing." He's like, "No, like I'll fix it." So going back to the earlier question that was asked by Mr. Postino, that's why you want to have a good team who can proactively suggest these things to you, not just reactively take orders. And he saved me hours of time by doing that. Another time, there was a problem like in my room I'm at right now. There was a mark on the wall from one of my kids, and I'm like, "Oh shoot, I'm gonna have to paint the wall before I do this video." Same editor's like, "No, that's where we'll just put like a logo there." I'm like, "Cool, dude. Like I like this." So when you find the right people, you should, treat them right. So I gave him a bonus yesterday just for doing a good job over the year, and he was so thankful because his family's been going through some challenges. So treat people right because then they'll be even more willing to go that extra mile for you. And I think that goes in any relationship, but it is a relevant story because it happened this week. How do you scale? Well, you achieve scale through ads and partnerships. So we talked about ads already, but partnering with people who have a larger following can also increase your reach. So some of the content creators that I reach out to, I'll say, "Hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to co-brand on something? Do you want to partner up on this kind of content?" Therefore, I can piggyback off their reach as well and get in front of more people. So for my podcast, one of my first guests was Pat Flynn, who some of you may know of because he does a lot with Teachable. But I was like, "Hey, Pat, can you be a guest on my podcast?" Sure. So just me having Pat on there gives me access to his audience. But I still had to have a strong overlap with his in order to earn the right to even reach out to him. So these partnerships are very key to you scaling your reach. Um, but outside of that, also focus on building your email list because if you're doing some kind of content deal, you could say, "Sure, I'll create this content, but I'll also promote it to my email list." So be sure to focus on that as well, not just creating content, but collecting data too. Right. So let me pause here because I know it's a lot, and I don't want to fly through it too quickly because there's a lot of information here. But how's this feeling? Is this useful? Is this kind of boring? Are you regret your choice today? I want to make sure that this is providing value based on whatever specific questions you might have. So please do ask them because I'm happy to grab them for you.
I want to pop in while people are answering your question there. I know it can be really intimidating to reach out to people who have a larger audience. Do you have any advice on just like how you construct those emails or how you reach out? I think people underestimate how much other people like to talk about themselves.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be that scared. But how do you, if you're reaching out to someone with a much bigger audience, how do you construct that relationship and offer value to them?
There's a few ways. I mean, I'll give you like one easy route. Anytime someone has a book coming out, that's a
Mm,
really good opportunity to reach out to them because they want to promote the book. So new book, new course, stuff like that. If you can make it very quick, but show them a way where they can get some more content out there talking about their book, you'll get more interviews, more even like a video like recording like this. Do that. Another thing is just authentically engaging with their content. Let's say for a month before reaching out and saying, "Hey, Jonah, I've been following you for a while. What do you say? Based on you saying this, we could do something like this. I think it'll be a really good fit for both our audiences."
mm,
So I think the problem is if you just reach out to someone and say, "I'd love to partner up," but without showing that you actually care about them and not having some kind of plan, that's when it becomes a problem.
sure.
So it's you have to practice like this delayed gratification and just put some more thought into what you would do.
Love it. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and even with brands, when I reach out to a brand, I normally say, "Hey," one of my kids is trying to break in. I normally say, "Hey, I use your product. I enjoy it. Here's an example of me talking about it on LinkedIn, and these people seem to enjoy it as well. Gosh, I think it'd be a great partnership." So if I can
Uh,
show them I have a history of promoting your product. I had this one really good example from on LinkedIn. I gave some kind of talk like this, and I mentioned Canva, and then
mm,
two people reached in saying, "Oh man, I love that Canva tip." That gave me permission to go reach out to Canva and say, "Look, I already am turning people on to your product. Can we talk about a potential partnership?" So front loading yourself for success by already becoming an ambassador and then asking for someone's permission to partner with them, I think is
right.
really bright. I mean, here's the thing, like I tell my people that I work with all the time, like if you're ever mentioning a product, like this is something called Athletic Greens. It's like a green drink or whatever, daily thing. If you ever talk about it on social media, just tag them because they might get back to you and say, "Oh, Terry, thanks so much for sharing your story about Athletic Greens. We're glad it helps you, when you're too busy to whatever." I can then go back and say, "Hey, by the way," you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
so so that's it, but like you have to proactively look for these opportunities because they're there all the time. But if you're not doing through these little tiny steps to do so, that's where you'll fall short.
Right. Love it. Love it.
Systems, and then Mr. Faustino has a question. Can we talk about how to build a media kit? I'm going to see if I can share one while we're talking. So give me a minute. We'll see if I can bring one up, but we can talk about it either way. Last thing is systems, just using tools and teams to manage everything. So these are some tools you might use. The script is what I use to upload videos and then get the transcript from them. You can also do some really cool editing with it as well. So I highly recommend checking that out if you want to do kind of social media content or longer form as well. It's cool too. Notion's a great way to organize your thoughts and your content. Canva, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of. It makes you look like a graphic design expert with all the cool templates they have available. So I would definitely check that out too. In regards to your team, you need an editor, a graphic designer. It kind of depends on what you want to do from there. And I mean, I even have a team of people that proactively reach out for partnerships. So, or at least look for them. And these are people that I find on Fiverr, but you want to outsource, automate, or just eliminate as many as tasks as possible because you want to spend your time thinking of creating a content and creating it as well. Another thing I encourage you to do is to have what's called a dominant question. What answer are you trying to answer on a regular basis? Because if you have the question, you will find the answer. You'll find it in so many ways throughout your day. And my dominant question, my personal one, is how can I use this moment to live the legacy I want to leave behind for my family? That's what goes through my mind all the time. My professional one is how can I generate revenue by creating content that helps people? And I'm going to walk you through a process of how I did that. So I have this course, which you're all welcome to check out. It's called Build, Attract, and Convert: How to Get Clients for Your Professional Service Business. It is free. So what I did recently is I promoted it on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, I have this course, check it out. Right now I'm creating content that's going to help people and build my revenue." How? Well, when you go to the course, you'll see a link here for a tool called Honeybook, which helps you track your finances and send out proposals. That's an affiliate link. So if someone clicks through on that, I create content. Get revenue based on the content I created. How much revenue? I did okay recently, right? 3,000 bucks. So I have this online course. I promoted it on LinkedIn. Content. How do I monetize it? Through this tool I recommended as an affiliate marketer. So you can do the same thing. You get opportunities all the time that are being presented to you. You just have to be mindful and say, well, how can I monetize this moment? So action item is to jot down all the tools that you use and see if they have an affiliate program. If they do, you can create content that promotes it. If they don't, reach out to that company and say, would you be interested in having me as a sponsor, a paid sponsor for it? So either way, you have a reason to or a way to monetize your knowledge and your use of this product. Here's another example of me finding the opportunity within the opportunity. This is from a company called Pivotal. They make like camera holders, I guess the best way to say it. If you want to like create a video, you can put it on there and it'll like follow you around the room. It's a pretty cool device. And they reached out and said, "Hey Terry, how are you enjoying our product?" Basically, and I reached out and I said, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. It's pretty cool. Would you be open to discussing how I can partner with you as a paid brand ambassador? This would include me help creating short form video as well as longer curriculum around how creators can generate revenue from their work. Pretty much what I'm doing right now. You can learn more about me here. Do you want to talk about this? You can book a time here or email me." They got back to me and said, "Yeah, let's talk." So again, like even you getting an email from any vendor that you use, you can write back and say, "Hey, I love this product. Have you ever thought about having a paid brand ambassador? Or can we talk more about this?" You never know what's going to happen. So these opportunities are presenting them to you all the time. You just have to be aware when they do. So like I said before, the future belongs to creators, and we have to build it together. But right now, what I want to do is grab some of these questions, and I hear my kids like I think they're rioting in the background, which is pretty interesting. But while you're queuing up these questions, I'm going to try to find an example of a partnership deck too. If you don't mind, I can share that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
And
cool.
so, everyone, we have a little more time with Terry. Please drop your questions in the chat, and also check out the links to his course are in the comments and the description there. And I did also just want to call out. You mentioned some of the things, but I highly recommend going to the Spotlight channel and looking up Terry. We've done, I think, 4 or 5 events together,
Yeah.
and you go more in depth on some other aspects, especially if you're in a position where you don't quite have your business figured out. Some of the events we've done on starting your consulting business is such a wonderful way to like just start your business before like digital products and stuff. I found those so helpful. So I did just want to call those out because you have a whole wealth on that YouTube channel that's super valuable.
Thanks, Jordan. One
Yeah.
thing I think you mentioned before is like I don't pitch too much because I'm just excited to help people, and at the end I'm like, oh crap, I probably should have made some money. But I just know what it's like when you don't have a resource or a guide or just even the motivation sometimes to charge a true value or how to package it. And I always tell the story of like when I first started out as an entrepreneur, my daughter was a newborn, and I was just worried all the time because I was worried about her future being attached to the future of my business, and I had no clue what I was doing. So if I have a chance to help people and to share knowledge, I focus on that. And at the end, I'm like, I probably should have sold something too. But, but that's really my goal.
Yeah. Well, do you also find though, I think that's cool though, if you're in a position where you are monetizing enough in other areas where you don't feel like you have to scrap every dollar out of every opportunity. That's probably partly happened over
Yeah.
time because you're doing better now, it seems, and you've figured out where you can get the big money and where you can give more away.
Yeah. And it's funny because if you look at my LinkedIn, I have not promoted anything I'm selling in probably like 6 months. But
Hmm.
I've gotten so many more inquiries from people saying, "Hey, can you help me write my LinkedIn profile? Can you help with my content? Can you do this?" And it's just like it's the exact opposite of what you think might happen. Like it's not drying up; it's actually building up more. Which, again, I mean, if you're creating content with a goal of providing value to people, if you are the gift, you'll receive the gift. And I think if we focus more on that as opposed to saying like, how can I make money from stuff all the time, you'll be much more altruistic in the content creation process, and as a result, get rewarded for it. So
Right.
yeah, I think it just goes hand in hand with it.
Well, and when you're saying you're not promoting things you're selling, that doesn't mean you're quiet on LinkedIn. You're just
Oh yeah,
providing free value, right? That's the
yeah,
the idea. Cool. Yeah, love it. Were you able to find a media kit or
Yeah,
a brand? Yeah.
let me just show you. And again, this is from my friend Kim here. But here's her media kit, and it just has her about over here. Again, what does she do? Who does she do it for? If you go over here, there's some stats on her social
Oh,
media, and
can you share the screen there? We're not seeing that at the moment.
I hate being that guy.
It's a,
Yeah. So let
there
me
we
know when
go.
you can see
Love it.
it. All right.
Yeah, we
So
got it there.
here's Kim. She actually just got married Saturday. But anyways, that's Kim. Here's her about section. You know who she is, who she does it for. Some stats on her social media. If you want to take a look at this too, it doesn't have to be huge numbers, but it is what it is. And then information on her audience as well. So where they're located, do they have kids or not? Hers is a bit more well built out. Another one is brand partnerships. Who she worked with before. This is always great, and like that's why you can just start small. It could be like I partnered with the Brooklyn Chamber of Commerce, or I partnered with like some local pizza restaurant. It doesn't matter. It's just like having some kind of story to tell. Like these are some results that she's gotten. What does she do? I can speak. Here's some feedback from my speaking events. I have a podcast. Here's information on my podcast. Here's some of the hosts that have been on there. I was on her podcast. I don't see myself here, but it's all good. And then lastly, hey, I'd like to collaborate. Here's how you can reach out to me. So what I would do is I would just literally like Google Media Kit example, and I want to say Canva might have a good template for you too. But the main key thing is like who do you do? What do you do? Who do you do it for? Um, what kind of audience do you have? What are some things you've done in the past, and how can people work with you now going forward? And if you have any examples of your expertise, whether it be videos, audio, whatever it is, I would share that too because it reduces uncertainty.
Right. And so to tag into the other part of the question, kind of like when to use it and where, do you lead with a media kit or do you wait until they ask you? Because it sounds like you definitely change your approach depending on who you're reaching out to.
Yeah, I mean, I would if I was reaching out to someone random, I would lead with it because I don't know if I'm ever going to hear
Mm,
back from them again. But if
right.
someone emailed
Right.
me and said, "Hey Terry," and they say, "Well, here's some stuff," so I didn't go through like the pitch part officially. But yeah, if it's someone if it's someone you don't know, you want to answer enough questions initially, but not overwhelm them with information at the same time. So that's why.
Right. Right. I love and what I was curious, like, how does this vary a little bit? Can you apply a lot of this to if you're selling products, not necessarily services in the same way? So, I know you're very like service heavy and just kind of your content and stuff. But for someone who's maybe on Etsy selling products, how do you adapt these same kind of business partnerships into that realm if you're not like social media heavy?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you build a brand, it's beneficial. I think if we're talking about call it e-commerce as opposed to services,
Hmm.
then I want to say it's pretty much the same, to be honest. Like I'm
Yeah,
trying to think,
yeah,
find a
yeah. Well,
differentiator.
and even yeah,
Yeah, I don't want to invent one. I mean, it's just like it's the same basic process. I wouldn't try to differentiate them too much to confuse anybody. It's pretty much the same thing.
no, and I love that. Even if that's the answer, I just want to
Yeah.
address that because we consistently get people who are like, "Oh, but I don't do exactly that." And
Yeah.
I also see it's very easy when you're starting out to make up excuses why good information doesn't apply to you. So I'm kind of
Right.
calling that out.
I'll say this. I mean, it's not time for money, which is a good thing, right? If I'm
Right.
trying to sell like cell phone cases, great. I can just sell a bunch and I'm not spending more time outside the content creation. Whereas on mine, if I'm selling myself as a content creator and I'm like, I have to go make these videos now, it is time for money. So that's the benefit of having an online course, right? I mean, that's like the sweet spot. Like you have a product and you are the talent, but there is no like, carrying costs, there's no shipping. It's just like here you go and you're on your merry way. So that's why I think being a course creator should naturally be a step that any kind of creator takes because that's how you can make some big bucks and you're not depending on getting a yes or a no from a huge company. It's just your audience wanting to learn more from you and actually paying for that service.
Love it. Love it. Well, Terry, we have one more question popping up. I was just about to wrap up, but if we
Yeah.
we got the time here. So you have given me the idea to get a partner. I have a friend that is very techy. So what is a good way to partner her? Give her a percent of what my course makes, or per action, or by the month? So a question kind of to like, how do you break up and price the individual partnerships if you're reaching out? Do you propose that right away? Do you have a system for this? How would you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen is if you're paying someone to create your course, you just pay them to create the course. But
Mm.
if they're doing some kind of promotion behind it too, then it can be more of a partnership where it's like, okay, you get a, you create the course and you get a percent of sales based on you promoting it. But I think it's great your friend is techie, but I don't want to pay her for the rest of my life because she made a course like 4 years ago. So, so like
Right.
that's where it gets a little tricky because you're still actively promoting it. And there's a lot of resources on the Teachable website on how to promote a course, but you're not done. Like that's the first part, but it's an ongoing process of nurturing your audience, providing value, answering questions about the content as well. So I think you're better off just paying her like a flat fee and then saying, "Hey, thanks. Let's do another one next time." But I don't think I would pay her like in perpetuity on the fact that she built the course for you.
Right. Appreciate that. Well, we do have to wrap up for time here, Terry, but thank you once again so much for your expertise and your time. For everyone watching, either live or the replay, please hop in the comments. Thank Terry for his time and all of the value he's been giving us. And check out the course that is in the description and in the comments. It'll also be sent with the replay. And if you had a good time today, please like and subscribe to the Discover channel. I should say the Spotlight channel. We just rebranded, so I'm getting
Yeah.
used to it, but we're trying to consistently bring folks like Terry out to offer their knowledge and help us all grow and learn how to make our businesses and lives better. Terry, before we wrap up, I like asking one kind of poignant, actionable question. And I know I see so many creators talk about how social media, all of these things are ultimately pointing to growing an email list because that's where you can have a honest interaction and where you can really work with people and sell to people. Do you have a like first step advice if you want to grow your email list and you have nothing? What's the best way to start doing so?
Solve a problem for your audience. And my lead magnet on my website is a one-page business plan for business professionals. So the problem I'm solving is how do I get started, right? But yeah, just throw together a quick PDF. I found someone on Fiverr who created my PDF for 45 bucks.
Nice.
So jot your ideas down and then find someone who can do that work for you. And from there, you can start growing your list. But yeah, I think too many people focus on the content they're creating and not enough on how they're going to maintain a relationship outside of whatever platform they're creating it on. So good suggestion there.
Yeah, cheers. Well, thank you once again, Terry. Always a blast. We'll hope to see you soon again. And thank you everyone for watching. We'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks. Take care.
Take care.